we're all like in like a beehive of housing activity in those years. It was all about housing. If you know anything about the sort of local movements in New York, housing is still big, but it's nowhere near what it used to be, because we all lived in such inferior conditions. We were living in just rat traps, and in those days nobody stayed in their apartment at all. You just hung out on the stoop all the time because there was just no life in your apartment except life that you didn't want to be around. And every apartment in New York, I mean above 96th Street, was totally humid, totally dark, totally falling apart, totally disinvested. The stairs didn't work. There was no light. Con Ed would be off. We were just living in really terrible conditions. It was Jacob Riis times whatever, because in Riis's times, at least, things were relatively new at that time. It all got older and older and older as the century went on. And by the time I was a kid, we were living in terrible conditions.
I mean, it wasn't a co-op at the time. It was a two-story rental situation. But in 1979, the ladies of the building got together because the owner was very distant with the building. There was like 200 violations. The city was going to take over the building. So the ladies in the building got together and formed a co-op and took over the building.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I think it was 1979, if I remember. But I was very young at the time, so, All right, I was in my teens, okay. But in 1979, they took over and made it Desperation Housing Development Fund Co-op and took over the building.
I walked in here, we have 13 windows. There was not a window in here, not a window, no floors. There was no wall to the apartment from next door to me. So I came in and thought I had 14 rooms. I was like, oh, we can take this. We can take this over. And then my husband got sick. He didn't know I had accepted the apartment. Like I said, the girls came in and said, Mommy, something wrong with you. We're not living here. As you can look in the basement, we tiptoeing on beams to go through the house. They said, what's wrong with you? I said, but y'all never have to leave home if we take this. And they was like, no, we're not.
I was thankful from day one.
Yeah.
Just to see that everything was new. Of course, the rooms were a little smaller, the ceilings were a little lower, but other than that, this place is absolutely spectacular, considering that the city of New York gave us
what they gave us.
Yeah, what they gave us. I am so thankful, and I tell people if I could live another 50 years here, I would, because I'm not going anywhere.
I needed housing. I was living in a rat-infested, roach-infested, cold water flat in East Harlem. But my wife Teresa and I, were looking around to find people that would like to do a squat and take over the building. And along the way, we were able to convince the mayor, who was not on our side at the outset, Mayor Koch, and convince the city, which was not on our side at the outset, that this was the best result for the city, to not put these buildings up for auction and sell to new landlords, but to give them to the families that wanted to work and live in the buildings. And so they gave them to us, and then they gave us title, and we put everything else into it, which was our daily sweat. These are from the buildings that we renovated with the young people over in East Harlem, but I'm still. Oh, no, this is East Harlem also. That was the apartment that we lived in East Harlem.
Well, before I came here, I was homeless. I was in a shelter. And for some reason, a friend of a friend got an application, and the president and the board, I mean, the people that were the board, they accepted me. It was a low income building. We couldn't do all the stuff many times. It was like it was meetings after meetings, and they were like fighting because they didn't agree, and the other side didn't want to. It was like really crazy.
Dogs and cats.
Yes, it was really bad. Like I said, I used to have people going to my apartment and knocking on my door, trying to hit me, and the other people are just trying to come and try to help me, and like, it was really crazy back then.
Well, the building was close to going into receiver. It was going to be lost.
Yes, it was.
Right, at that time.
Like
'cause-
foreclosure or?
well, it's called a different thing, but then HPD picked it up and kind of became it under their umbrella. Or, somehow, because like Maria said, the water bill wasn't paid, things like that. Major expense was getting for the building.
Yeah.
So then didn't
We did
you
put the building.
you have helped do the co-op, like that was 89, right?
Right,
When the co-op
right,
formed.
right. Then the co-op, we just became a co-op.
With UHAB, yeah.
We
That-
became a co-op.
That was huge.
From my understanding, right, for this kind of building happen, it's a 1980, the big financial depression. So like the landlord run away.
Yeah.
And then the building, nobody to maintain the building. So the government, the city, try to encourage people to stay, to manage their own place, right? I'm looking for a place to stay permanently. I just tired of renting. And this house, this apartment is the only things I can afford. Yeah, that's why before I purchased this apartment, I never heard about this HDFC like you guys. I have no idea what kind of situation I'm into. I just, it's cheap and that's it. I go there. Yeah.
I was homeless. I was really homeless. I was looking for a place. And I met a 7A administrator, which was a friend of a friend. So he had told me about HDFCs. He said, I said, right now I'm homeless. And there was a vacant apartment. I moved in. When I moved in, it was destroyed because the tenants already had taken over and the landlord was away. Absentee. So at the long run, he promised me that the apartment is the way it is. We'll give it a couple. I promise you, it's going to become an HDFC. We're going to renovate it first. I said, well, great. When I moved into the apartment, I opened the door. It was burning. The bathroom was burned. It was destroyed. I said, well, you know what? This is better than being in the street. Let me stay here. So a couple of years went by. The tenants and the management took over with the grocery. And you know what? They converted it to an HDFC.
We all started taking over these buildings and then invested ourselves, and then we became community builders. We became people that were completely committed to making the block work, and this block started to work after a period of time. Anybody who was in New York at that time in the late 70s, early 80s knows there were thousands of abandoned buildings, and they were almost all city-owned. And the city was in the process of foreclosing on thousands of buildings every year. And so we found 10 families and took over this building.
My name is Henry Reed.
My name is Ping Lo.
Yeah, so I'm David Calvert.
My name is Jack Moore. I've been living on this block 29 years.
Brooklyn, New York.
Uptown.